Yeah, welcome. Right from the beginning, I would like to invite you to become aware of your body so that we start this session with a bit of embodiment. So not all your attention to the screen and what I say, but also that you bring yourself along. Just noticing your posture and your mood, like the inner weather, and how it feels right now for you to be in this meeting. And I also want to invite you to look at the people in the screen, and see if we can connect on a basic human level, that we are all human beings and with feelings and that we struggle. So there's a way to, even if the faces are not so familiar, to connect from heart to heart on a deeper level. We all have similar feelings. We are living under similar pressures. And the actual situation right now really is a reminder that we are all connected. So this combination of feeling your body, feeling your own energy, and at the same time reaching out and connecting with each other. And throughout the evening, and if you join tomorrow, I want to encourage you to do that throughout the sessions, so that you're sitting here as a human being with feelings and you bring yourself along and you notice your responses, the inner movements. So that this weekend not so much becomes a rational, intellectual journey, but a journey into your inner world with kindness and wisdom. And I am in Germany right now at my mother's place. I'm taking care of my mother, and this is the room where my father used to live. He passed away 6-7 years ago. And I see Katharina is in Switzerland. It's joining from Switzerland with a beautiful view outside of mountains. So it's interesting.
Italy.
Sorry?
Italy, not
Italy.
Switzerland.
Right. Yeah, sorry. That's right. Italy is even better. And Kati from Miami. Wow, that stretches our heart space. Great. Yeah. Have I met you before, Katja? No. Oh. Yeah, welcome. So yeah, we have a big space of awareness here, covering the ocean, and yeah, that's beautiful. Meeting in this space. We don't know where this meeting happens, but there's definitely a meeting, a connection. And it's great that the space is so big. And I don't know if you are aware that this weekend is actually part of a half-year course I taught in Yeshe Norbu about the 37 practices, a text from the 13th century by Tongme Sangpo. And we started with the weekend about half a year ago, and we had online meetings, 6 of them, and we went through the verses, and we reached verse 28. So tomorrow and after tomorrow, I want to focus on the remaining verses in the text. But each of these verses actually in itself a teaching, so it doesn't matter if you have not attended the other teachings. Some of you have. And today, tonight, I picked 3 verses from the first part of the text. So one can divide this text into 4 parts. The first one is the foundational practices, and I want to talk about those. And then there's a part about transforming problems, Lojong, a cognitive reframing. And obviously, this weekend it makes sense to apply these teachings to the situation we find ourselves, to the pressure, to the loss of structures and things we took for granted. So it will be good to apply what Tongme Sangpo said to our situation right now, to your personal situation, but also to our collective situation. And part of the transforming problems, or Tonglen, transforming attitude training in the text, is the practice of Tonglen, giving and taking, Tibetan practice. And I want to talk about this tomorrow. Also, a beautiful practice which we can use in difficult situations and challenging emotions, fear and sadness. And then there is a part of the text where Tongme Sangpo goes through the 6th perfection, and that's where we are actually at in our little study group. And then from verse 28 or 29, there's like some additional advices in the last verses. So before I will read from the text, we will start with verse number 1 about the precious human life. Let's take some time to reconnect deeper, allow the body and mind to settle. So if you adjust your posture a bit, if you like, you can close your eyes, if that supports you in connecting with the inner weather, checking out the inner weather. And if you keep your eyes open, you keep them relaxed, without particularly looking at something. And then you take some time to meet yourself, to welcome all the guests in the guest house of the body. And you notice how your attention or your awareness slides into your body, even down into your feet. You can take a couple of deeper in and out breaths. And it might be possible with the out breaths to soften in your belly and in your shoulders so that your energy can flow. Your attention might rest lightly on the flow of the in and out breath, but keep your awareness open. So that's also my voice and the sounds in your surroundings, and also the presence of the group. So with the in-breath sliding into the body, embracing, as if you're hugging yourself. And then with the out-breath, softening, opening, letting go of the doing, of the agendas, the busyness. So you slide into present moment awareness. And thoughts, they continue to arise, and that's fine. The inner dialogue, but it becomes less interesting. So you let them come and go, neither indulging nor trying to stop them. Just let them do their thing in peripheral awareness. And if you get entangled into the inner dialogue, you gently and without hurry, you return back to the aliveness in your body, to the breath, to your hands, to your belly, and letting everything be as it is, just being aware, just noticing. And there might be something in the felt sense of your body that wants to come to the foreground, and you allow that to happen. Something pleasant or unpleasant, maybe a tension or a numbness. So not focusing on it, you keep your awareness open, but also touching it and holding, embracing or inviting. And we can appreciate that we make this little journey into our inner life together as a group. Not only meeting our psychological world, our inner world, but also the shared, the common. breathing together. And remember the vastness of this space in which we meet, from Italy to Germany to the United States, Sweden. And for sure there's thousands of other people right now who are in the presence of the divine in silent prayer and meditation. So we can open to that space of essence love. Nobody alone, but together. And returning, allowing yourself to find a place of rest in the midst of your experience, non-manipulating, non-fixing, non-controlling, just giving space. Spacious aliveness, present moment awareness. Softening the belly, solar plexus. And then for those who who have a connection with the Buddhist teachings, the Tibetan lineage, we call upon the blessings or the inspiration, the protection of these teachings. And I have received these teachings from His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Lama Zopa. And we can trace back this lineage over their teacher, Ling Rinpoche and Trijang Rinpoche, and then Pabonka Rinpoche, back the centuries to Thomas Sangpo, and then to Atisha, who brought these teachings to Tibet, and then to Nalanda Monastery, Shantideva, and then back to the Buddha. Who handed down these teachings through the centuries until they reached us. And we can allow the presence, the essence love, the wisdom, the loving gaze to bathe our body, our heart, in particular where we are tense or tired. So let yourself be meditated by the presence of the lineage and the practitioners of these teachings, as if you're bathing in the warm water of wisdom and compassion, as if you're bathing in compassionate presence, every cell of your body, from the toes to the top of your head. And returning and resting, surrendering, opening to the field of compassionate presence, to the field of essence love. And that's why we are here tonight, to open that space for us, the space of bodhicitta, of essence love, of wisdom, so that we become vessels for wisdom and compassion, for our families and friends, and for the people around us, and for this world. Spiritual warriors, Bodhisattva warriors. Love warriors. And all our Bodhisattva and baby Bodhisattvas, unknown Bodhisattvas in this world, they are so happy that we join their ranks. And we become sons and daughters of all the Buddhas. So may our meeting tonight not only benefit ourselves, but our surroundings, this earth. The whole universe. And then, if you have your eyes closed in your own time, you open your eyes and just notice how you feel now. If you can bring a bit more softness or tenderness with you, which might radiate from your heart. Maybe you need to stretch a little. So since we are not so many, you can always just unmute yourself and make a comment or ask a question. But also around 8 o'clock, we have 10 minutes break, and then you could ask a question on the chat. But I also will give some space in the next session after the next meditation, after the break. So I don't want to say so much about Tongme Sanpo and the text. If you're interested in that, on my SoundCloud profile, there is a playlist. It's called the 37 Practices, and it's recordings from the teachings I gave in Göteborg. And in that first talk there, I give a longer introduction into the life of Tongme Sanpo and the time when this text was written. But I think at least it is helpful to realize that Tongme Sanpo was a man, a human being with feelings, and he was struggling just like us. And these poems, they are in a way written for himself as a way to express how he tried to handle this impossible human life with all the challenges and with all these struggles. It's amazing how difficult it is to be a human being with feelings. So there's a lot of support in that text for difficult moments, difficult periods, which is basically always. But sometimes it becomes more obvious. It's more in the news that life is difficult and that things are impermanent and that people die and that we are going to die and that there's not much or there's nothing basically where we can take refuge into except our love except our own heart. In this text, the 37 Practices for Bodhisattvas is one of the most venerated texts in the Tibetan tradition by all Tibetan lineages. And it is a text which is not like a text one reads and then it's done, and it's just one of the many books we have gone through, but this is actually a companion for life. So something to return to, something to contemplate, maybe something to bring into your daily meditation practice as a reminder. And I have been reading this text now for more than 20 years, and I return to it again and again. And it's like a journey to relate to a text like this, to allow it to touch you in the different phases of your life, and to return to this text, to receive different teachings and commentaries, to apply the methods out of this text which make sense to you. And I have been using a translation by a Buddhist teacher called Ken MacLeod, and he wrote a commentary also on this text. It's called Reflections on Silver River. And I had the experience that many people really appreciate the poetic language of Ken MacLeod and also the simplicity of his commentary. It's a short book, it's not very big. But also Ken MacLeod attempted to translate the text in a way that it makes sense to us. So he was not like some translators, they really try to stick and to the original words, and they and then sometimes like the meaning gets a bit lost because some of the words, they don't make really sense for us. So I also like the translation of Ken MacLeod very much. Many Tibetans, they have memorized this text, and I notice it's now the third time I'm teaching using this translation of some of the metaphors and some of the sentences Ken MacLeod uses to translate the original text. They really stick with me. And when we read the verses, I invite you to just be open, notice your responses, notice the words or the sentences which touch you. Also notice expressions or ideas which trigger you, which cause some resistance or some not understanding. So reading a text like this should be like also an emotional journey. So it's not only about acquiring some knowledge, but it can be an emotional journey. How does these poems, how do they make you feel? What is happening in you? What is the metaphor he uses? What does it bring up in you? And that is not necessarily only nice and inspiring, but there can be also other responses, anger or confusion or doubt, or so we can have all emotional reactions to a text like this. So I want to start with the first verse this evening. So I picked 3 verses for tonight from the first section of this text, which is foundational practice. like basic gradual path teachings, basic Lamrim teachings. And the first verse is about what is called the precious human life. And I think already here we can, when I read the verse, we can really look into our momentary situation. So he says, right now you have a good boat, fully equipped and available. So this is one of the sentences for me, which somehow they stick with me, the fully equipped boat. And in the commentary, Ken MacLeod, that's what I pointed to before. He describes like the scene, yeah. So a fully equipped boat, yeah? So you are in a harbor, the city is behind you, and there it is, a fully equipped boat, a good boat, fully equipped to take off, and you're standing there. You can just jump in and go on the journey into the unknown, but there's the next Netflix series waiting. There's your friends waiting. There's the obligation calling you, your job, your addictions, your attachment, wanting to feel secure and safe, not going onto a journey into the unknown, but sticking with what is familiar and what feels safe. So this is like a metaphor which can help us to feel this tension within us when we get in touch with the teachings. There is this inspiration. There is this intuition that there's something bigger. There's awakening is possible. And then there's our fears of holding back, wanting to stay in our routines, letting days and weeks and months and years just pass by running around. And then there's the fully equipped boat, a good boat, a reliable boat. Hard to find. So this is part of the precious human life is, or part of the definition of a precious human life in the Lamrim teachings is that now in this life we have access to the teachings of awakening in the different traditions. And this is hard to find. Even if we just look on this planet, even if we just stay here on the earth. So if you look into your own life and into the life of the people around you, there's probably big stretches in your life and in the life of the people around you where we are just running in the hamster wheel, in a kind of meaningless day-by-day routine, career, education, fitness, so all these projects, and little space for meditation, spiritual practice, little space for self-development, for inner healing, for little curiosity towards our inner life, our habits. So it's hard to find. And once it is found, so once you're hooked, that is very, very precious, as is this moment, because this is what we do in this moment. We connect with these teachings. And somehow, in all of us here, there's that longing, that yearning. And probably for most of us, that longing or that yearning started to emerge even already in childhood, as a teenager. And throughout our life, again and again, we have followed this yearning, followed this longing. And we went to teachings and we bought the books and we went into retreat. And for some of us, it is like a compass in our life. Something, even if we sometimes forget about it, we return. Sometimes we take breaks or we get occupied with something else. And then when that becomes more and more the undercurrent in your life, which makes everything what you do meaningful, this is so precious, so beautiful. It's something to be really, really happy about. And in particular, to be happy about, but then also to protect and to nurture. So there can be, when you realize that you have this boat and you at least partly have entered it, or again and again you have entered it, in particular the teachings on transforming problems, because human life is so difficult. So if we found something which makes our struggle and our suffering meaningful, so in a way that they become something which helps us to grow, which connects us with what is most important for us, this can be a source of a genuine, quiet happiness in life every day. Something which is not touched by sickness, loss, and so on, and reactivity. There is the compass of the Dharma, the inspiration of the Dharma. It's the most precious thing in our life, once we have discovered it in our heart. It's a good thing to contemplate this or return to that happiness in our daily practice. And as if you are familiar with the Lamrim, this is the first in the structure of the gradual path to awakening. This is the first contemplation. So this fully equipped boat, hard to find, to free yourself and others from the sea of samsara. So this boat is not a journey of entertainment, but it has the capacity, this journey, which is possible with this boat, to free yourself and others from the sea of samsara. And there it is, just in front of us. And we are looking back, or are lazy. So even if a Lojong master comes to town, the sun is shining, and I feel tired and a bit sick, and it's difficult to sit there and sweat, and and then we don't step into the boat. Day and night, constantly. Study, reflect, and meditate. So I guess this is, you can check what happens in you when you hear day and night constantly. Study, reflect, and meditate. Yeah. So then, what is happening? Yeah. What is happening when you hear that sentence? Yeah. Day and night constantly. Wow. What? No break? Yeah. What is with drinking a beer and eating chips and watching Netflix? Yeah. Day and night constantly. Yeah. Study, reflect, and meditate. So that's it's really like a battle cry. Yeah. The battle cry of the warrior, day and night, constantly. Study, reflect, and meditate. But that's the compass, yeah. So that's what we are developing into the direction, and then, of course, we have to explore what does it mean, day and night, constantly, to study, reflect, and meditate. How do we do that? How is that even possible? Yeah. So there's always this exploration among practitioners and discussions about how to bring these teachings into our relationships, into our workspace, into everything. And so Tongre Sampo in this text gives us a lot of indications and inspiration how to do that, particularly with the practice of Tonglen and the practice of Lojong, attitude training. So day and night constantly, for us it sounds like, oh, then there will be no fun, yeah, then there will be no rest. Then so it sounds like a kind of a soldier who is pushing, but obviously that is not meant here. Yeah. So to be creative and to increase the toolbox of different practices which you more and more apply, and you become familiar with them so that they become natural. Yeah? So that even when you eat chips and drink beer and watch Netflix, that the mind of Dharma is with you then. Yeah? And then there's also the art of rest. Yeah? So that's part of the Bodhisattva training, is the art of rest. So what is healthy rest? The awareness, it's a lot about an increased awareness and an increased curiosity towards what is happening in your inner life. And that is, of course, possible to do at any moment. So a question which we could ask in the different situations and areas in our life is, how can I turn this, how can I transform this, whatever it is, going to work, making breakfast, going to toilets, going shopping, how can I turn this into the practice of awakening? How can I turn this into the practice of essence love? How can I be more kind here, more loving? And how can I bring a wisdom, the wisdom of realizing the nature of things into all situations of my life? and night. So, so how to practice in the night. Yeah? So that's it's also an day and night. Yeah? So constantly through dream work or falling asleep practices and waking up practices, or turning the nighttime also as part of your spiritual practice. At one point, through the engagement with this text and other practices, there arises a feeling in you or an understanding that you are actually doing it, that sentences, practices, ways of looking, they accompany you in all situations. Yeah. And then also becoming aware when that is not the case, that's also practicing. It's part of practicing day and night, is to become aware when we get caught up, when we get entangled into our reactivity, when we follow harmful patterns. So this recognizing the failing, you could say, is part of practicing day and night. One can also turn this initially into a kind of just an aspiration, yeah, like an intention. So in the morning, for example, yeah, to make a prayer like, so today, wherever I go, whatever I do, whatever I say, may that benefit the world. Yeah. May wherever I go, the place, may that, or the relationship, or the people I meet, may that place, may that relationship, may that meeting be a contribution for a kinder world, for a more loving world. Yeah. And then with that kind of aspiration, with that kind of intention, one can frame the whole day, and then throughout the day one can check. Yeah? But this to carry deeply that intention within you and returning to it, that's so beautiful. It's so inspiring to have that in your heart. So, and then to become aware that a lot of situations we enter or relationships we enter are governed by the mantra, and what about me? What do I get out of this for me? And then you become aware of that. And then you can turn that around and ask, so how can I benefit this relationship? How can I benefit this situation? At least this is my wish, my intention. We will constantly fail with that. But from that failing, we will learn. And then, of course, then we become interested to heal the causes for why are we so narcissistic, so why are we so defensive? Why is that happening? And can we do something about it? So this is not day and night constantly study, reflect, and meditate. That is not like a practice of effort, of tension, of suppressing. It is actually learning more and more to be more relaxed and joyful and finding practices which can support you in coming to a place of loving awareness constantly, day and night. Returning to loving awareness. Loving whatever arises within you and around you. So and then each of the verses stops with, this is the practice of a Bodhisattva. Yeah, so this is the practice of a Bodhisattva. So day and night constantly study, reflect and meditate. It's like, it's something, wow, yeah. It's not like, oh, yeah, then do I have to give up? Do I have to give up my favorite food or something like that? The question is more, how can I transform having my favorite food into Dharma practice? Yeah. How can I eat for others? How can I take care of myself and healing and putting boundaries and saying no with the Bodhisattva intention, with the inspiration of bodhicitta. And it's obvious, part of the Bodhisattva's life is to learn to take care of yourself. And that doesn't need to be self-indulgent, it is just wise. It is wise to take care of yourself so that you can be more relaxed and more beneficial for others. And for some people, there might be months or years in your life where the focus should be on self-healing and taking care of yourself. We don't contribute to the world if we add our own burnout, when we add our own harshness with our own life, with our own inner life to the world. So it can be like so instead of reading this and then feeling, oh, no, I just want to have a little hobby called meditation and Dharma, and otherwise I actually don't want to, really go into this 100%. So instead, we could turn it around and make it this joyful, relaxed, opening, inspiration. May I? Yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to constantly study, meditate, and reflect in every moment in my life. Whatever I do. Not so much, it's not so much even what I do, it's how I do it, and what is the deeper intention behind my actions. And then you can go with this into the fitness center, and you can go with this making breakfast for your family, and you can go with this into going shopping or to a party or scrolling Facebook. Okay, so let's have a break. And then after the break, I want to lead a short reflection, analytical meditation on the precious human life. So that's traditionally presented with the 8 freedoms and 10 endowments. But I want to just pick a few kind of spontaneously of these points so that we can get a bit of a deeper feeling of what is that precious, that fully equipped boat? With what is it equipped? Yeah, and I already mentioned one point, and that is we have access to the teachings. Not only to the books and to the practices, but we have access to fellow practitioners, to centers, to masters of this tradition. So that is part of the fully equipped boat, but there's more to it. And I want to point in our next meditation a bit to the other points. So let's have a 10 minutes break. So we will continue 1:15. If you have some question, you can make comments on the chat. So some of you are familiar with the practice of analytical meditation. You could also call it contemplation. So in an analytical meditation, you use reasonings and metaphors to facilitate an insight, an experience. So it's not an intellectual exercise, so I will give you some reasonings or some metaphors. But the important thing is to feel them, to kind of, for example, the point I already made, the preciousness of having connection with the teaching, not to leave it here, but to kind of bring it into your gut, to feel it, to feel the joy, like to feel the joy, the arising of the vitality in it, and of course one cannot force it. It is more like you offer something, you offer an image, you offer a reasoning, and then you turn your awareness to the felt sense in your body, so that the rational insight becomes part of your being. So there's a bit of conceptuality, a bit of rationality, but the important thing is then to drop down and to feel. Not in the sense that we try to force certain feelings. So there is an openness also to just allow to arise what wants to arise as a response to the images and to the words and to the reasoning. And when you do this practice on your own, you would then take your own time, of course. So you would go a bit into the reasoning, and then you would rest in the experience of the reasoning. But of course, we all have different rhythms, so I might be too quick or too slow. So you can adapt to your own needs here. So either you go along with me, or you stay with a certain point and marinate in it. So this is also neuropsychologically understandable, that changes in our habits and in our brain happen when they are connected with an emotional experience, when we feel things. Otherwise, it just remains one of the points we know, but that's not the point here. It's not about knowledge. So let's take a few moments to adjust and step back again into your inner life, into your body. So you take some time for meeting yourself as you are in this moment. You can close your eyes if that helps you to feel your own energy. And there can be a bit of resting with the breath. So sliding into the body and welcoming the guests in the guest house of the body. And maybe you notice that you feel a bit different than in the beginning of the session. And you let the mind, the heart, the body just settle. And again, we can appreciate that we make this journey together into the human inner life, welcoming, holding gently, touching softly, embracing, and then softening also in the shoulders and the belly. And returning, resting, present moment awareness. And we can start right there with the breath. I'm breathing, I'm alive. We're breathing together. And you are aware. So this is most precious. That there is not nothing, but there is aliveness, spacious aliveness. There's the breath. There's presence. How mysterious. How wonderful. Even if this moment is not so great, there is a moment. There is presence. You can feel, you can hear. You're alive. I'm breathing, I'm alive. I'm aware. There's consciousness. And not only that, there's friendship. There's the connection we have. You're not alone. But there's also other friends, spiritual friends, other friends. How precious. Friendship is something to live for. Spiritual friendship is something to live for. How fortunate. There's a mystery of love, and that you can love and that you receive love. The wonder of hearing, the wonder of having thoughts, and even if you are low right now or tired, it's still a mystery, a wonder, awareness, and aliveness, spacious aliveness, and love, friendship, warmth. Sometimes it's enough to just be alive, to be aware, to be conscious in this unique moment. And then we all have today, we all have food, water, and shelter. And so food, there's food in your fridge. You can have dinner, you have breakfast. Water, there's water to drink, water to bathe, water to wash your hands. And there's shelter. You have a bed tonight. Things we take for granted, but it's good to take a moment to connect with some awe or appreciation or gratefulness that right now your life is not just fighting for survival. So fortunate to have food, water, and shelter. Just notice if you can relax into that. How precious. And when you look at your mind, you can see that, of course, there's tension or addictions, depression or fear, but it's still flexible. There's some openness, there's some awareness, there's some freedom. How fortunate that there's that space for change, for growth, for healing. I'm rich. I'm actually not poor, I'm rich. So the breath and the aliveness in your body. Then returning if you get entangled into something else. And maybe you can return just to this moment or to one of the words like food, water, shelter, presence, friendship, love. Present moment awareness in that richness. And on top of all of that, of all these resources and the space, we have the teachings. So if you look at your life, the different kinds of teachers and teachings, books, inspirations which touched your life, people like the Dalai Lama, the Buddha, Jesus, other spiritual teachers, and your fellow practitioners, centers, retreats, the internet with all the resources. How precious, how fortunate we are. Remember these moments of inspirations and openings and joy. Remember the mystery of being in the presence of masters and places, temples and retreat centers like in Stockholm. How fortunate, how precious. To have follow practitioners, Sangha. How fortunate. Yes, and that is the fully equipped boat, just sitting there in the harbor. Rare to find. A precious human life. A meaningful life, a deeply meaningful life. Maybe you can feel that undercurrent of meaning, of direction, of refuge. And then we just sit quietly for a few more minutes with the breath and the aliveness, the richness of this moment, the richness of your life. I'm a rich person, fortunate. And then to add some urgency to this moment, we can remember death. Yes, there's a fully equipped boat, but it's fragile. We don't know how long it will be available. How long do we want to wait? Because death is certain and the time of death is uncertain. This moment of aliveness doesn't last forever. It's unique and difficult to find. What is important in your life, knowing that you're going to die soon. Yes, and then if you have your eyes closed, you open them, return. So this contemplation on death is one of the verses in the beginning of the text. Very important contemplation. And these times, they are really a reminder it's not more likely that you're going to die soon, because that's always there. But it seems to be a bit more obvious for everyone. And here, death, not only the death of this body, but the falling apart of structures and things we rely upon, things we take for granted. So from a point of view of the Bodhisattva practitioner, this is a good opportunity to take this, to take the contemplation of death serious. That this day is really precious. That this moment is really precious. And this reflection on death and taking death serious as an advisor, as a friend, is really important, because there is the tendency in us to waste the precious human life. To kind of postpone, to postpone the freedoms, the opportunities we have, and to be spaced out or not present. Sometimes when people get the message that they have a terminal illness, sometimes that leads to a deeper authenticity or aliveness. Yeah? So, wow, yeah, the breath, what I see, what I hear, that I feel, that I can love, and that I can express my love, that I have friends. So this, what is really important, what does matter in my life, and what holds me back, and what holds me back to do the things which are really important to me, to sing my song, to connect with the people who are important to me, to express my love, or to forgive. I mean, is it worth to fight with someone? To be in a mood with someone? Maybe it was the last time you saw this person. Many moments where we are with the people we love and we are so unaware, we look at our Facebook account instead. Taking care of my mother who has lung cancer. So I can really notice that I allow moments to pass where I'm not present to our relationship. And returning to presence. And in her case, it's obvious that the time, I mean, our time is limited always, but sometimes it's just more obvious. I mean, maybe I die before her, yeah. So, I mean, that I'm younger and healthy doesn't mean that I live longer than my old, sick mother. So that could be part, that's for me part of practicing day and night, is to come back to that awareness with my mother and to be present, to be just there, to be here with her, and not read my Dharma books. Or watch my YouTube videos. No, to watch the bullshit she's watching because she likes it. And then soon I will have some regret about not watching football with her. Yeah? And I will miss it. Yeah? So that would be an example of how to practice day and night. Yeah? So, to use the contemplation of death for being present to the people which are important to you, and practicing loving presence right there. So I want to read another verse, which is verse 3. No, yes. Don't engage, disturbances and emotional reactions gradually fade away. Don't engage, disturbances and emotional reactions gradually fade away. Don't engage, distractions and spiritual practice naturally grows. Keep awareness clear and vivid, and confidence in the way arises. Rely on silence. This is the practice of the Bodhisattva. So rely on silence. So this is one of the sentences which really stick with me. Rely on silence. So what does he mean with rely on silence? So this is a verse about how to practice in the midst of the fire. So how to practice in the midst of so-called disturbing emotions, how to practice within the midst of reactivity. And these times probably, when we are under pressure, usually some not nice reactivity arises. Sometimes we are maybe surprised about that it is there. So before we thought, I'm really a generous person and I'm quite relaxed and kind to everyone. And then there's pressure, and then suddenly, wow, that's amazing. There's still that narcissist in me, or that hungry ghost, or that self-important, what about me? And so that's the question. So how to practice in the midst of the fire, of this situation, when our reactivity might be a bit more obvious. And for the practitioner, that is good news, because if things are going well and we are safe, and then these parts in us which need healing, which needs to be addressed, we don't even see them. We might think that we are a generous, relaxed person, and then suddenly things change, and we get afraid about not having enough of this, and then we become narrow. We become suspicious, afraid, and that is a good thing for the practitioner, because what you become aware of, you can address and you can work with. If it kind of sleeps in the subconscious, then it remains undressed and ready to spring out in the moment when it becomes difficult. So rely on silence. So that is a practice of stepping backward. Shifting from the entanglement to a broader awareness, to make yourself bigger, to realize that there is reactivity, but in certain urges, but I am bigger than that. I don't need to put them into the driver's seat. I can't stop them from arising, because these are deep ingrained habits and they arise. So we don't have choice there, but we have the choice of stepping back, to pause, to notice the contraction in our body, and to become aware of that which is quiet, to become aware of one's own presence, to become aware of being aware. And so this backward step, and becoming lovingly aware of your own hungry ghost, of your own jealousy, of your own of your grasping. So the grasping arises, so either I want that or I want to get rid of that, but you step back into silence. So you pause and you step out of the river of your reactivity, the river of your feelings, the river of your responses, of your urges. You step back and you look at it. You give space to it. So rely on silence. It's a beautiful pith instruction of silence. So he's talking about a silence which is surrounding and pervading everything. Yeah? So it's something which is available in any moment. There is the contraction, there is the movement, there is the worries or the fear, but there's also something which is bigger. Yeah. And he calls it silence here. So it's also the unmoving mind, what's called that what knows. Yeah? So that what knows, that which is present. And you step back into it. And you look from there. So you don't look from the river, you don't look from the reactivity, you don't look from the fear. So as if you are swept away by the river, and you look from it into a world which is maybe threatening, but you step out of the river like you would step out of a stream onto the riverbank, and you would go into the witness perspective. So it's the witness perspective, which is the ever-present witness perspective, which is silent. There is an ocean of calm surrounding us and pervading us. It's just a matter of becoming aware of that, becoming familiar with that. And in our meditation, and here formal meditation is very helpful to learn to become more familiar and make the backward step. And so that's also something to practice day and night. Yeah? So it is actually possible to practice that in dreams, yeah? To step out, called lucid dreams. Yeah? So, and that is something. So we might need to become familiar with this step into the witness in our formal meditation practice. But then, of course, the important thing is to do it again and again. You know? Short moments, repeat it again and again. So that it becomes an automatic process. So it becomes an automatic process. So in the moment where contraction happens, there is a bit of that move into the background. So you don't collapse into the contraction. Of course, we will do that. This is like an ideal, yeah. So not to collapse into the narcissistic I, but we do that more and more and more. So it becomes a natural thing for us. And then slowly, we, without any effort, practice day and night in every situation. Just pausing. So being with my mother again, I mean, to bring that like into my situation, I have so many opportunities here because, I mean, she's constantly triggering me and pushing my buttons, particularly after like 2 months. Yeah, I mean, to be 2 months stuck with anyone is a challenge, but with your mother, that's really like, yeah. And then then sometimes I become sharp, I become annoyed and reactive. So I collapse into old patterns, which I actually thought I had outgrown. Yeah, so I was really proud of myself a few months ago, yeah? And I would say also in my teachings, "Wow, I'm with my mother, and I feel so grown up. I don't regress anymore." But that's gone. So it's like this really wonderful moments for a practitioner when you realize you're not as awakened as you thought. Yeah? And for that, we need pressure. Otherwise, we wouldn't become aware of it. We would live in the illusion that we got somewhere through our practice. Yeah. That's what our partner is for, or our children, or the annoying colleagues. They reflect back to us where we are still stuck, where there's still identification. And if they wouldn't be there, we would be maybe the happy meditator in the cave, yeah, feeling one with everyone and being in peace with the world, because nobody is around. So again, that would be a part of the Lojong way of seeing the situation you are in. It's an opportunity. It's a gift to become aware where we are stuck. Yeah. And then I need to do some homework in the evening with myself. or then I'm really inspired in the morning to have the intention, so to be present, to be loving present to all these mother attacks. And sometimes it just sucks, but that's also part, So sometimes it's just too much, but yeah, okay. Then also feeling stuck, or it becomes too much, and you become tired, or you feel nothing moves. So that's also, something to step out. So you snap out of the mood. You snap out of the mood of that stuck relationship, and you look at it. It's an experience. It's not you. You are bigger than that. So you can step out of that, and you can rely on silence. And this is a very simple practice. So there's nothing more to do. So it's just stepping out and relying on silence. There's no other antidotes. Yeah, not like then I don't need to reflect. Then, oh, she was my mother for countless lives and sacrificed her life for me. It's just stepping out into silence and looking from there. No more antidotes. Okay, so that's what I wanted to. I also picked the verse about death, but I talked about that in the after the meditation. So I covered the 3 points I wanted to cover tonight: the precious human life, death, and the certainty of death, the uncertainty of the death, and then one of the major practices, which returns again and again in this text in different words, but it's the same practice, and that's like relying on silence, which is the Mahamudra flavor of this text. Yeah. And then tomorrow I will pick a verse from the Lojong, Transforming Attitudes, and then talk about the Tonglen verse, and then going into the rest of the text, starting from verse 28. So I think if you want, it would make sense to see this weekend a bit as a retreat. So if you, many of us are anyway, but in the retreat and isolated. To maybe tonight do another meditation before you go to bed, like a body scan. You can use one of mine from the SoundCloud, or any other teacher, or maybe you have your own meditation practice. So, and then also tomorrow morning. Yeah? So we will start again at 10, but you can do a morning practice and keep the morning quiet. Keep it free of social media and news, and maybe do some yoga, some movements before the session. And then also tomorrow evening, so that this weekend becomes a bit of a container where we can we can be with ourselves and with our inner life, and allowing this text to penetrate deeper, rather than going into the usual distractions and the usual entertainment. That would be helpful. So we dedicate the merit to all unknown bodhisattvas, including ourselves, to our awakening, and the rising of awakening on this planet, the growing of human consciousness into essence love, into the union of wisdom and compassion. That would be the best response to any crisis, the union of wisdom and compassion. So may that grow from our meeting in us and around us. And then thank you very much. I appreciate your attention and getting on the fully equipped boat for this weekend. And I hope we have a good journey in the fully equipped boat together. And then I see you tomorrow morning at 10. Goodbye. See you. And thank you, Martin and Sarah and the other guys there. See you tomorrow.